So for this, just like every college student ever, I did a presentation. This is Melty Neutral for the UNI Player, the MISCO method. So what we're gonna see today is gonna be a little bit about how to play Melty if you come from games like Uni. So with that being said, let's start. Who am I? My name is Marmo. My credentials are that I was okay at this game, so you can at least hear that all this stuff comes from someone that at least did okay at this thing, and I wanted to flex also. So I'll go get you. So first of all, while this is gonna be an approach for Uni players that want to learn Melty Neutral, you should also watch this too. You should also watch this this video by JG, Foundations for Melty Movement. You can find it on YouTube. It's an hour-long video that explains a lot of nuances in neutral and how to use movement, how to use drift for these type of things. But for me, I want this video to be how a Uni player can understand how Melty Neutral works, because it's totally different. It's really complex, and something we were talking with Anemi, who is in chat too, is that first of all, what makes Melty different is that while some games are really linear on punishing moves, Melty is more about punishing movement. What does this mean? Well, you see, in a game like Uni, you have very straight answers for a lot of stuff. For instance, if my opponent is jumping, I can just 3C and anti-iron them with my massive hitboxes, and I got him. GG's. If Akatsuki jumps at me as Hyde, I can just 3C him. If someone throws a fireball at me, I can just shield it. If someone does a multiple air moves, I can shield them so I can gain frame advantage. It's really simple, a really simple approach. If someone's throwing zoning at me, I can dash block it and make my way through. It's very linear. While in Melty, let's see the same situation. We had Hyde, who has a massive 3C to anti-air. In this case, we have Bluff, for example. He has a massive 3C to anti-air. So what makes this situation different? Well, if you see here, the situation is pretty much the same. Someone's making a jump in at me, I'm gonna 3C them with my massive anti-air. But in this situation, Red Arcade decided to jump back and whoa, what the fuck? And do a moon skill that hit him, that hit Bluff. And you're saying, what? How did my massive anti-air beat? Everybody on Twitter was saying, this hitbox is huge. I should never lose to this, to an air move. But the thing is, Arcade's options are not only to just jump straight at you. It's not like that. She can do a lot more stuff than that. So let's go into the game. Let's recreate this situation. If you see this, what happens is this. I try to anti-air, and she jumps back. She doesn't really need to approach directly. So what happens here is that if I try to anti-air, I get punished. It's a counter hit even. So it doesn't matter that my hitbox is huge. She just beat my anti-air by just moving in the air. So the main thing I want to get from this is that unlike Uni, you don't really have straight up answers most of the times. You don't have a massive 3C that's gonna get every single option. Instead of that, you need to approach things differently. So let's say I'm just gonna 3C. Look at all the options Red Arcade has to avoid that 3C and even beat you. She can use a jump back moon skill. She can clash through the 3C using JC charge super armor, blowback edge, excuse me. Or she can just jump back or air dash back and avoid that 3C. So instead of using a tool like 3C, let's think things differently. If Arcwit is gonna jump at me, and she's just gonna land with a normal, like one usually thinks about it, let's move ourselves instead. Let's not stay there and try to anti her. Instead, let's see where she's going and see how to avoid her. In this instance, Blob, instead of using 3C, Blob dashes under and hits her recovery. So let's see in game. Oh no, I didn't want to do this. Let's go back to the game. Start the dummy recording. See, let's say that Arcwit is just doing this. Whoops. Let's say that Arcwit is doing this. That button is huge. It's hard to deal with. But you can just do this. And catch her landing. You can do that if you predict that she's jumping ahead of you. Let's say that Arcwit now, like a previous example, she just jumps and does this. Alright, I'm Blob, I'm standing here. I caught her. Alright, that was kind of harder to do, but here I get her. It's kind of something that works, you know. Instead of me trying to deal with this like this, let's try it and move around and try to catch her doing something predictable. I got her here, for example. Let's say that Arcwit instead decides to do this and jump back. Something like that. Something like that can work. See? You don't really need to challenge things directly. Instead, you can move around and try to deal with these things with your movement. So going back to the presentation, here's a bunch of examples. You have different ways to approach an opponent like this. For instance, this straight situation that we've seen, Arcwit just jumping at you. What can we do about this? We can, for example, jump and drift back and use our JV to hit her before she hits us. We can do a rising JA, which is a classic in Melty Blood to intercept pressure. We can even do a jump air throw or a super jump air throw. These type of actions are interceptions, to say it like that. You try to intercept the attack before it comes out, or you try to outspace it, but you try to deal it with one of your own moves. On the other hand, we can also move and reposition before she hits us. For instance, we can neutral jump and air backdash. We can dash under. We can backdash against the JC, for example. There's a lot of options we can do that don't involve just straight up anti-airing, but instead using our movement, using our position in the screen to deal with their options and being flexible about it. But what makes this difficult, especially if you come from a game like UNI, is that the opponent can also do this too. The opponent can also alter their movement to avoid your option. We just saw, for example, using our JB to outspace, but Arcwit can just air backdash out of the range of the JB, or she can double jump and now use the moon skill. She can just block her JA, or if we try to air throw, she can use air movement or use an air backdash, a double jump, to just hit our whiff on the air throw. On the other hand, if we try to backdash something that's coming, Red Arcwit can do a forward dash and hit our recovery on the backdash with her massive JV, for example. Or if we dash under, now Arcwit can double jump and reorient, change her orientation, and now look at us and try to attack us as we try to hit her on the ground. So while we have options to deal with this, the opponent can also alter their movement to avoid these options. That makes it so Melty is not a linear game. There's no A answer to to one situation. There's plenty of answers, and something that may look wrong in a situation can work. Just because of timing, of movement, of drifting away. A lot of things can work just because of that. So let's go back to the game a little bit. Alright, let's say that we go for a dash under. Let's do something like that, just as an example. It's hard to record it, but whatever. Something like that can happen. Now, Arcade is looking at me while I try to dash under, and she can avoid it a little bit. Of course, I didn't... It's obviously different in a real game situation, but you can kind of get the idea of what I'm trying to say. Let's see if that works. Doesn't, but you can get the idea that... Alright, let's try this. Same situation. Oh, it's just because Uni... Alright, I need to do something like this. This should work. Nope. Something like that, for example. It doesn't work as I thought about it on my head, but for instance, if I dash under, in this case, Arcade can still move around. She hasn't still committed to an option, and she can chase me around. So even if I dash under someone, that doesn't mean I have a straight up punish. However, if for instance my opponent uses all their mobility options, let's say like they jump, they air dash, and they jump again. Say something like that. She can drift back a little bit to avoid it. But what can she do there? She used all their option. Sure. That didn't show the punish. I wanted to show the punish so I can see that I did it correctly. It's gonna be hard. Something like that. Like, you get the gist of it. When the opponent uses all their options, now you can start doing some stuff like this, for example. But there it clashed, so it didn't really work as intended. Oh, this doesn't have armor? I thought this had armor. Well, whatever. You can get the gist of it. Alright? Doesn't mean that... That's when anti-airs actually work. Exactly. Like, once the opponent stops moving, and you can find, like... you can tell when they're actually going to land. Like, they don't have any movement options left. That's where you can try to anti-air. That's when you can do something like that. And if you're a Uni player and you have fought characters like Seth or Yuzuriha, you may find yourself in a similar concept. Those characters can usually just move around in the air, but if they used an option that pretty much sets where they're gonna land, you can catch them landing and you can hit them. Alright? So, let's move to the main thing I want you guys to remember. This is the MISCO method. What is the MISCO method, you may ask? And it doesn't have a funny name just because of it. It's for movement, intercepting, spacing, covering zones, and orientation. See, those are 5 key concepts you want to remember on this game. And using the MISCO method, you can just think, oh, MISCO, and there it is. You can remember. So what does this mean, Marma? What does this mean? Well, let's start with the first letter. Movement. Kamona, on a recent interview, described Melty to be a grasshopper game. What the fuck does that mean, Kamona? Well, it's simple. It means that it's a game where you just keep moving. Try to not stand still as much as possible. you jump, you neutral jump, you super jump, you drift, you air backdash, you backdash, you air dash, you dash under, and now you even have Moondrive to reset your movement options. You want to use all these movement options to do what we just saw in the example. You want to use all these tools so you can keep yourself flexible and neutral. You just jump and land with a JC. That's kind of obvious. Let's keep with Blob, for example. If I do this all the time, even while my hitbox is huge, you can already tell I'm just gonna do this, I'm gonna do this, and the opponent can dash under me, my opponent can put me in uncomfortable places. Instead, I can jump, I can backdash, I can jump, I can backdash, I can jump, and now I go in. I use my movement to stay in different positions. I can use Moondrive to like jump again in case I need to escape a difficult situation. You can use a lot of things just to move around. Super jump, for example. Now you can't neutral super jump. You can only forward super jump. But for instance, you can do the classic air dasher strategy of like jumping, neutral jump, and analyze the situation after your neutral jump. For instance, you jump, you're right here, and if your opponent is ready for you, you can just air backdash. Instead, if you jump here, and your opponent, for instance, whiffed the move, you can air dash forward. It's a classic air dasher concept, but here Melty gets stronger since you can also air dash and jump back. You can air dash and jump again. You can air dash back, you can jump back. You can air dash, you can drift. You can drift a little bit, behind you. Use a huge hitbox, and if they're not doing something, you can air dash back. If they're approaching you from the ground, you can drift a little back. If they dash under you, you can jump forward. ¿Funciona con un JC? ¿A qué te refieres precisamente? Porque JC puede venir de todas las formas posibles. Or like while waiting for the answer, like for example, let's say that we have the dash under concept that I showed you earlier. All right, let's record Arcade again. Put her on dummy playback. I'm gonna dash under her. Oh, she noticed that dash under. She just makes space by forward dashing and getting out of danger. See? And it's kind of hard for me to chase to the other side. Yeah, but like that's on the second point I wanted to make. But yeah, you can like keep moving after a whiff JA, and many times you can do like rising JA and falling button, which is also a thing that works in Uni. But a lot of the stronger moves, you don't have enough recovery to do another air action, so you kind of have to like wait a little bit and then like you want to use moves like when you're certain that they're gonna hit, or to cover space, which is something I want to like mention a little bit later. In the meantime, I just want to say movement like in general, like movement without the need of any buttons. In fact, you can just move and then define your approach. You can neutral jump, you can drift a little bit back in case you're wary of them running below you. You can drift a little bit forward to like do a little offensive move and then jump back. You can move, then you can air dash to try to avoid danger. You can use a lot of things with movement. Also, a little thing I wanted to mention with Moondrive. You have 3 jumps in Moondrive, so you can cover a lot of ground, vertical space. But in your 3rd jump, you don't have an air dash. You can't like instant air dash after like your 3rd jump. You have to like, I don't know why it did it there. Like there was this only one instance where it dashed, but after your 3rd jump, you pretty much are set with movement. And also thanks for the follow diver down. If you're a Moondrive, however, you can do like use the 3rd jump to like keep your approach safe. Or if, for instance, someone just hit you in a combo and now you're up in the air and they're gonna catch your landing, you can Moondrive to keep moving, keep avoiding danger by using your air dashes, your double jumps, your triple jumps, etc. And something really common in this game is that. Alright, let's use that. Something very common in Melty is to have someone just hit you here, and now you have 2 options. You can not tech, and they may get an invalid combo with not much damage. And now you're up in the air. You're really high, and your opponent can kind of predict where you're landing. It used to be that in Actress Again, if you already used your air actions and then you got hit, and then you tech in the air, you don't have those actions. So where you're gonna land becomes really predictable. But in Type Luna, if you find yourself in a situation like this, don't panic, air dash out. Or you can, for example, neutral jump, come back. Right where your opponent's about to hit you, you double jump, and then you kind of see where they're going with it. Or just get out of here with Moondrive. Just get out of there. You can use movement for that, to avoid danger, and at the same time put yourself in advantageous situations. And something that goes a little bit unnoticed, but it's really good, is using the drift. Like, you will find that you can bait a lot of stuff just by drifting. Like for instance, the 3 C's we mentioned before. You can just do this and you're pretty much gonna be safe from pretty much all 3 C's. You can do this to switch sides. You can fake a side switch just by using the momentum and using drift. Etc. Now, since we were focusing so much on movement, let's go to the next point. A second letter in the MISCO method is intercepting. What makes Melty a little bit different than UNI? While in UNI it happens, you do like a -5A to intercept someone, or you do some characters can do rising JA. For instance, Seth, Eldnum, they can do rising JA just to annoy the other. In Melty, rising normals or using your A moves are usually very useful to avoid these air approaches. If you notice that your opponent is gonna jump at you with a normal, you can use a faster and non-committal normal to cover that option. You try to avoid the opponent to get space to do their move. But at the same time, the benefit from using these normals is that if your opponent did something different, for instance, your opponent just tried to bait you into jumping and get you with an air throw, for example, you can use these non-committal moves just to go to a safe position. Like the classic rising JA is a key concept in Melty Blood. And we can see, for instance, we are gonna have Red Arcwade, our good old friend Red Arcwade. Just do this, or just do this, the giant button, etc. Yeah, I'm explaining MISCO right now. You can hit her. You can avoid her going into that. You can intercept her with a JA if you cover the space early enough, and you can go into a very large punish. Well, not that large, but a good one at least. You can force her to block. You can do this. Now she's landing with you in the frame advantage, etc. You can just force her to block and not do anything. But at the same time, if you do this late, you're gonna eat a punish. So you pretty much have to intercept preventively. You have to prevent them from getting to that space before you. That's why you're rising JA. They're active enough to do so. So we have JA as an option here. But what happens if Arcade, she didn't actually jump? Like, you try to prevent it and she didn't actually do anything. First of all, remember that these can have enough recovery for you to do something else before it. But the opponent's probably gonna anti-air you or try to do something on your landing. So you can jump and air backdash. You can jump. Oh shit! I'm getting out of here. I'm changing sides. You can do a lot of stuff with that. You can prevent and then switch. See? You can do a lot of stuff with these buttons, and they're not committal. You can even you can use the momentum, for example, in a dash. Oh, I'm getting out of here. See all the distance we covered with the momentum from the dash? And then using an air backdash. You can use an air dash forward. For instance, characters like Bluff, who benefit from space, can use that. Instead, if you're a character that actually wants to be close to the opponent, you can cancel into a double neutral jump. And then drift a little bit back to avoid any possible anti-airs. And decide on how to land. You pretty much want to land safely. So if the opponent is not approaching you, you can go back and use a hitbox to cover the space. You can jump forward and try to avoid altogether, try to air dash over them and go to another position. But in the end, you find yourself using a non-committal move to avoid exactly this. Use the JA. See, you're not in much danger. The worst thing that can happen is that the opponent really predicted your JA and did something even faster. But then, if your opponent is doing that, she's not hitting you. She's trying to avoid your JA. But now this works. Finally, this works. And even then, your JA can be fast enough to cover that space the opponent's trying to cover early. But it's a little bit hard. You need to do it really preemptively, or else you're gonna get counter hit. But now you're forcing your opponent to change their approach. So that's something you need to remember. Try to intercept things. Don't just look for your opponent to do things. If you know your opponent's gonna jump, if you know they're gonna do something, you can intercept them. You don't really need to like wait and do this. You can intercept them like this. Well, this recording is kind of harder because Arcade is doing a really early JB. But that means your opponent now is they're not really getting you on the landing so much. Alright, everything clear with that? Remember, you can cancel this into other air options. You can cancel this into another landing. You can use your air moves. You don't really need to like just do one option and that is. You want to keep yourself flexible. That's the main point about this. Alright, the game's kind of laggy, but that's because I'm in like window mode while juggling the presentation at the same time. So going back Third letter of MISCO method. Spacing. Look at these hitboxes. Holy shit. Look at them. Just take a glance at them. How can you challenge that? Tell me, how will you challenge Arcway JC? Well, the thing is, in Melty, moving outside the other's range while using your moves disjoint is really great. It's really amazing. Buena tula. Yeah, looks like a dick. Like Blob is just throwing a massive red dick. With that being said, you can use drift to increase your distance or try to get closer to the opponent. Oh! Let's go back into the game now that we saw these. This is it. If you're, for instance, Blob, and now your opponent is, well, I'm just gonna JB you to death. You're in the air, you drift a little bit back, you will clash, for example. You can catch them like this. Sometimes just throwing something out there, like at that range, can hit a lot. But at the same time, if you notice, these moves are slower. So I will probably eat a counter hit there. I want to try and space them as much as possible. And for that, we have options like air drift. For instance, if I do this, let's do this a little bit later, just to throw the concept, I got counter hit just by neutral jumping. I died. Let's see if I drift back now. Now I hit them. Just a little change. Just a tiny small change on my movement. Get out of here, Rock. Come on. My dog using the door. That tiny little change in the movement allow us to go from being punished to probably clashing. That doesn't really matter as much. When we went from losing this to most likely winning it. Because the space on these moves is amazing. Let's say another situation. Let's say I just want to build some space between me and my opponent because I'm bluff and I want to zone. How will you challenge this? How will you challenge this? It's kind of hard, isn't it? Like we just saw Blob's hitbox. There's pretty much a straight line here that the opponent has to try and deal with. How can we challenge that? So you can use that, destroying those hitboxes a little bit there to restrict the opponent's movement. Just have them not being able to just get at you. When you're about to land, just throw this out there. Just avoid them to go there. How can you like really counter this? Well, some characters also have good hitboxes, and they have really active hitboxes, for example. Whoops. Oops. They can get me before I try to actually get there. See? Oops. So now this becomes a timing issue. Do I hit her first before she gets me with the active frames? Or, well, maybe now I'm doing my thing. I'm doing these air backdashes, and suddenly Arcway gets me while I'm landing. See? While they're good, they're not invincible. It's kind of hard to do it with just the dummy, but I'm trying. I'm trying. At the same time, if she tries to approach just like that, our falling hitbox gets her. So the opponent has to time it so they can hit you just when you're landing. So using your movement space, using aerial drifts to like gain a little bit more space, or to get a little closer to avoid the enemy doing something. For instance, like an air projectile, you air drift, you get a little bit closer while keeping that neutral jump, and you get a little bit more offensive space. And another thing that I wanted to mention, a new thing in Lumina is the charge buttons. Where is my guy Coma? Here it is. A lot of people were saying, how do I deal with this guy just doing this? How do I deal with him? Well, from what we have seen, that dies. You have to do it like really early, or else you just die. The hitbox is kind of big, so I can't really dash under it unless I do it really a really preventive one. You have to space it. You can space it. You can catch their landing. It's a little bit hard. But there you see, punish. You have to use your normal spacing. Because if we see on the hitboxes, a lot of normals have, this game has a lot, and I mean a lot of disjoints. So you want to use them as much as possible. And for instance, if my opponent is just doing JC all the time, I don't really need to intercept him in the air neither, or dash under. If I know that he's gonna land right there, and I noticed my opponent is doing a lot of charge JC because it has armor, I can't really deal with it, you can go a little bit back, punish the landing, and then now your opponent has to think about another way of dealing with you. The armor is not invincible, so you can do that. That's a little example for people that were having trouble dealing with that. You have to think that we're not going to be like walking back all the time. We're actually going to be constantly in movement. So it's hard. It's really hard. But if you eventually get it, you can start like noticing patterns. You can start noticing how your opponent likes to do certain stuff, and then punish them for that. You put yourself in good positions and try to put your opponent in bad positions at the same time. Alright, so next letter. And this is a really simple concept, but it's just covering zones. You want to put hitboxes out there to force your opponent into doing something and reacting to what they're doing accordingly. For example, let's say I use my little lightning poke as Roa. I want to see what they're doing. Alright, they're starting to jump. That means they spend more movement options. That means I can kind of see where they're going to land easily. I'm sorry, that was a horrible pronunciation. I do a move, and I see what they're doing to respond to that move. If they use more movement options, that means I can kind of see where they're going. They only have an air dash and a double jump left. So I can catch their landing, I can dash under them, I can intercept them, all the things we have seen already. At the same time, if they just block things, they stay put. They stay right there. They stay blocking, and you get the initiative. For example, in this, I notice Arcade is jumping. I will use my follow-up to hit her in the air. If she just blocks it, I can now gain the initiative on my turn. I can spend meter to get the turn, or I can just use the follow-up to push her away a little bit. Going back to the game, and I'm gonna keep going with Blob because it's kind of like it's been kind of like, he reminds me a lot of Wara, so I can kind of like use it as an example. As Blob, you can do this to space. We have already seen. We are using this box. What happens if the opponent blocks it? Well, now we can just do things. We can just do this. And I'm actually gonna switch them around. I'm gonna switch them around and just put Blob doing a lot of neutral JBs. See how just doing this forces my opponent to like back off a little bit. If they block it, like, I know for certain they're gonna land right in front of me. Like, I know for certain they're gonna be there. If my opponent tries to use movement to like avoid this, for instance, now Koma's just neutral jumping, waiting until I whiff the JB and doing a JB. Now as Blob, I can, instead of doing another neutral JB, I can move forward and try to catch him. Let's see if that worked. Oh, Koma's faster. It's kind of hard to do with the recording. I can do that, for example. Oops. See? You can start kind of seeing the options the opponent can do. Oops, but I'm doing it. It's kind of hard to showcase it without actually like making myself regret the words, because right now I am the one getting the counter hit. But that shows how a little, like doing something a little bit earlier than the other can totally switch the outcome in Melty. But what I want to come with this example is that sometimes just throwing your buttons just to cover, just to avoid your opponent from getting in, covering a little bit of space, using your projectiles can tell you what they're gonna try to do. Let's say you're Ciel, for example, and you use your knives. You're at this distance. What are Ciel's knives? I don't know. You do that around a little bit. What's the opponent gonna do? They're gonna super jump most likely. Alright, let's try this. Something like that should work. The options here are them to like block the knives, or try to avoid them. If you do this, you're pretty much dead. So you want to keep your options flexible. Just do the first one and see how they react to it. Will they jump? Will they just block it? You have a little bit more time to stagger them, for example. Then, if you notice your opponent is doing something in response, oops, it's kind of hard. Alright, let's just stay in the defensive for a little bit. You can move around. You can avoid it. Oh my god, her dash under is so good. Oops. Her dash under is so good. Well, you can do some stuff like that. But as long as you're like noticing what the opponent's doing at the hitboxes you're putting out there. Now I'm doing nothing, and I can just hit her once she tries to super jump, in case she's not reacting and just super jumping to my projectile, etc. So Does this make sense to you? Is this like totally foreign, or are you getting the I kind of get it a little bit now? Like, remember, MISCO method is so you remember things to do. You don't end up like without a strategy to do, without a plan. All right. So moving to the last point is the orientation of a character. This is really important. Which side the characters are looking at, because you can completely avoid danger just by looking at the orientation a character has. There may be amazing hitboxes, they may be really strong moves, but if the character's not looking at you, you can avoid that. You can avoid crossovers, you can avoid really powerful moves just by switching the orientation and moving below. And this goes the same to you. If you're in the air right now and your opponent dashes under you, be aware of where your character's looking, because that's the difference between you air dashing against them with your strong air normal and you accidentally backdashing into whiffing a hitbox into dying. This won't work with Seal, so I need to change characters. Let's do it with Tono. Right. Let's go here with the dummy recording. This normal's really strong. This is a really good normal. This is a really great jumping. But if we're... Oops, I need to time it well. We're here, it does nothing to us. We can catch the landing easily. But if the opponent reorientates with a double jump, they will get us. So, what happens if I do this? Something like that can happen with an air backdash. If my opponent is far behind me, I'm still dead. Oops, I didn't really want to re-record it. If I notice the opponent dashed under me after my double jump, I want to try and get out of there. Oops. I can air dash forward to try and make some space. If you're on offense and this is happening to you, your double jump switches your view. Like if you see right here, if I dash, I can forward air dash. It's kind of, let me gather my thoughts a little bit, just to explain it better. If I just jump ahead of the opponent, I keep my orientation. I keep looking at the right. That means I will forward air dash if I try to dash here. That means I can make a lot of space, for example. But at the same time, I already left my opponent. I'm not gonna get much more of a close range offense doing it, for example. So, if we reorientate ourselves with our double jump, now this becomes a backdash. Now I can hit it with my JC. Move back with backdash, which if you notice, like forward dash moves you has more horizontal distance, while backdash is a little bit more floaty depending on the character. Like it does a little bit higher of a flip depending on the character. So air backdash can be a little more safer in terms of avoiding moves. But since we noticed this example at the beginning with Red Arcade, if you just move below your opponent, or if the opponent just moves below you, oops, using your double jump to change your direction where you're looking at can help you a lot to avoid these dash under problems. And it's a very important thing to do. So, when you're moving around in the air, try to save your double jump. Try to do air, like a jump back dash, jump dash forward, and then you can use your double jump to change where you're looking at. At the same time, this can also be a bad thing. Why? Because if you do that, now you don't have any options left. You're probably gonna land right here. It's like 90% sure you're gonna land here unless you do a special or you use your moon drive. So, be aware of when to use your double jump. Double jumps becomes really important in that case. But if you're a character like Seal, you don't really have to worry too much about it. You still have to worry about it, just not too much. Why? Because you have a cross-up box. Not all the characters in the game have it, but some do. For instance, Ciel, Miyako, Saber, they have cross-up boxes. So you need to be aware that if you're trying to punish something with a dash under, they can just cross up. Yeah, try to save your double jump for those purposes. And that's why, for instance, using the drift, just to alter your movement just a little bit while saving your other options is really good. See? Salto la vera. And you can also do something to remember also is that there's cross-up protection in this game. And in case people still don't know how it works, you pretty much have to be seeing the same orientation the opponent is. So I'm gonna go with Roa because it's something I practice myself. If you do this, this is not a cross-up. You can block either way. Just to demonstrate. Oops. See, I'm blocking to the left. I'm blocking to the right. I can block either way. Why is that? Because Roa, right now, is looking away. You can only hit, like, the way to bypass cross-up protection is by looking at your opponent. If you're not looking at your opponent while you're doing a move, it will probably have cross-up protection. Like, this, it's a lot more complicated, but, like, this is a basic rule to follow. What happens with your double jump? We just set our double jump switches our character's orientation. Now I'm looking right. Now, stuff like this, oops, will cross up. So that's something you want to keep in mind. When things will actually cross up and when things won't. If the opponent is looking at you, like right now, Roa is actually looking, it will cross up. That's why, for instance, you can do, this is a little concept I had in mind. Oops, stop blocking. No. I'm gonna flex my Roa attack, bros. Oops. Oh, right. I forgot this doesn't actually kind of work. You need to, like, a very specific way to set it up. Well, whatever. I'm gonna try it, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. Whatever. I kind of forgot. Well, let's stay back in topic. I don't want to drift away too much. But this was pretty much the last thing I want to mention. Keep your double jump for orientation purposes. If you see your opponent didn't double jump and they're gonna land, you can use the entire space behind them to punish them. Like if Red Arcade is just bothering you with her massive JB and her onion rings, if you dash under them, you're pretty much set. She doesn't have anything to hit you with. So sometimes just staying below the opponent, kind of seeing when they're going to land and where they are going to land to try and put yourself in a better position helps a lot more than just standing still and trying to challenge things with, for instance, 3C or DPs. So, just remember, some charts have cross-up boxes. That doesn't mean they're gonna cross up, you can just block them either side. And one thing I wanted to mention, while these cross-up boxes means dashing under is not as much of a punish, if you see they're not that big, like you can still outspace them with certain moves, especially with the massive, with the really massive disjoint boxes type Lumina has. So just be aware of that. For instance, Miyako's I think is the largest one, but CL's you can most likely outspace that with a 2B or a 2C of your character of your own. So that was pretty much everything I wanted to mention for someone that's going into Melty as a UNI player. In a nutshell, Melty is not linear. What you want to do in Melty is have flexible air movement. You want to be as flexible as possible because that punishes a predictable movement. And what we saw during this session is that there's not many straight answers like rock beats scissors, but some moves have a lot of better chances at beating others. For instance, a rising JA is very likely to beat a really late JC. But that doesn't mean it's going to work every single time. Because maybe you did your JA just a frame late and now the move is beating you. You can outspace with like the massive disjoint bluff JB, but you did a little bit late and now they're hitting you. Or you did it a little bit early and now you're whiffing a move and the opponent can capitalize on that. You want to find the best uses possible for each move in a way that keeps it flexible and not predictable for your opponent. For instance, here we have CLs, JA, JB, and JC. We can see clear purposes for these moves. The JA is a great air-to-air tool and a tool when you're below the opponent, so we can pretty much use it for a rising JA, very likely. JB has the best horizontal hitbox and it has a cross-up hitbox, so maybe we can use it as our neutral jump tool to just space a little bit the opponent and avoid them to get in our space. Now her JC has the best air to the ground range, so we pretty much can use her as an air to ground move. But at the same time we can use JB for the cross-up hitbox. You want to find the best use as possible for each move. At the same time, don't forget that these moves can be multi-purpose. Alright? So with that being said, that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about the game. Yeah, that's kind of like a good way to put it. Like, just think about that. You put yourself in positions where you can punish the opponent, but you can still avoid them if what you thought the opponent was doing was not the option they were doing. It's great that you liked it. I wasn't sure if what everything I was saying was completely good, like actual truth, but it is what it is. I thought it was okay. So GG's, play with Ethernet, avoid red names, and have fun with this game. It's really fun. It's a really fun game. Like, I really like this game. Coming from someone that really disliked Melty for other reasons before, I'm really enjoying this game. Like, at least you don't have to deal with corner carry into Oki every single hit. So, that was it. If you have any questions or situations you want to laugh or something... Oh, I dropped a little bit of frames. That sucks. We can just stay a little bit on training room before I end this. But that was pretty much it.